Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are back with another offseason preview video. And today we're talking about a team that went on a really big run in the NBA bubble and showcased that they have some really nice talent for the future. And the team we're talking about here is the Phoenix Suns, the Bubble Suns, who went 8-0. And there's a lot to like about this team's future. They've got a budding star in Devin Booker. They've got some nice other young players to build around in Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton. They have a top 10 pick this upcoming season in this upcoming draft. And they also have a really nice coach in Monty Williams. Monty did a great job coaching them in the bubble. They were a team that could have come in and been like the Wizards or been like the Pelicans or Kings and just come out and not shown anything, just reel it in. Doesn't matter. We're not going to make the playoffs, so why try in these bubble games? And they didn't do that. They played their hearts out, and they ended up having a really successful stretch of games. They went 8-0 in the bubble, and I attribute a lot of that to Monty and the job he did coaching up this team. The main way, or the most realistic way, the most obvious way for this team to make an addition to their core is in the draft. They have the 10th overall pick. With this pick, I think that the number one guy that they would love to draft would be Killian Hayes. But is he going to be on the board here? Probably not. But I just think he would be a perfect combo guard who can score the ball. Not an awful defender, solid defender. You could slide in alongside Devin Booker, and he could come off the bench this season even as a backup for Ricky Rubio. So if he's there, they should snatch him right up, but it's not likely that he will be. Similar with Tyrese Halliburton, he is probably an even better fit alongside Booker moving forward into the future. He could learn a lot from Rubio. Rubio could help him develop as a really good point guard. Right now he's seen as more of a combo guard. Halliburton is a really good defender at the guard spot, probably one of the best guard defenders in the entire draft. He's a solid catch and shoot shooter. However, his off the dribble stuff is still coming along because it takes him a long time to get into a shooting motion. And he's also a pretty solid playmaker. Sorry, I'm in school. So that was the bell ringing. But it's likely that neither of those two will be there, so they'll have to look for another option. And I think Obi Toppin could be another guy who likely would be off the board, but if he's there, they should snatch him right up. He could slide in at the power forward position alongside DeAndre Ayton, and I think that would be a really nice fit because Toppin isn't a great defender, and Ayton has potential to be a really good defender. He hasn't shown it quite yet, but obviously that would be a bit of a volatile defensive front court, but the offensive end of the floor, oh, watch out. Toppin could space the floor for Booker and Ayton. He would just be a really nice addition to this core as it is right now. I think a more realistic pick that I would love to see the Suns come away from the 2020 draft with would be Kyra Lewis from Alabama. Kyra is a very fast player. A lot of comparisons to De'Aaron Fox in that way. And I could really see him becoming a top 10 point guard in the NBA within his rookie contract even. And I think that this would be a perfect situation because he'd have a year to learn under Ricky Rubio, just come off the bench and play a backup role. And then after Ricky's contract expires in a couple seasons, he'll be ready to step in and be that starter at the one alongside Devin Booker. The one big question with Lewis is that he's very slight in frame, so there's potential that he could be pushed around a lot in the NBA, and that certainly is a cause for concern. However, I think that he will put on a bit of weight, and he's skilled enough as a player. He's a solid shooter. He's really good getting to the rim. He's got a really nice floater. That's probably his best shot on offense. His go-to move would be that floater. So I think that Kira could be a fantastic pick for the Suns, and he is a direction that I really hope that they go in. If they don't like Kira, they could end up going with one of the multitude of wings that I could see going in this part of the draft. Devin Vassell looks like a player who would be someone that they would have interest in as a 3-and-D wing who can really shoot the ball better than almost anyone in the draft. Similar to Cam Johnson, who was their first-round pick last year at, I believe it was pick 13 or 14 or 12. Something like that, somewhere in the late lottery. And I think that Vassell profiles as a very similar prospect to Cam Johnson, and I could see them taking him to slide in there into that front court, although that front court would be getting quite crowdy with Mikal Bridges, Kelly Oubre, and now another addition in Vassell. But you can never have too many good 3-and-D wings. Oubre's contract expires after this season, so maybe Vassell could be an option to be his replacement. The other wing that I would think they'd be considering here would be Isaac Okoro. However, I'm not nearly as high on Okoro as I am on Vassell. I think Vassell is a much better player, mostly because of the jump shot. Okoro is better as a guy getting to the rim, but once again, there's the school bell. But I really just don't trust Isaac Okoro's jumper, and I would much rather see them take Devin Vassell. And quite honestly, I have Saddiq Bey ranked over Okoro on my list of prospects. I really like Saddiq Bey, and he's another guy they could go with here as a wing. He's a good passer, really good defender who can guard pretty much 1 through 4. I think that Saddiq is going to be a really nice starter-level player in the NBA, and I'd like to see the Suns take him. I would not be opposed to that draft pick at all. So I guess my top 5 for them would be Hayes, Halliburton, Toppin, Lewis, Vassell, and I guess top 6. 6th would be Saddiq Bey. Any one of those guys I think would be a pretty good pick for them, although I might put Kira Lewis over Obi Toppin now that I think about it a bit more, due to Obi's defensive struggles, putting him alongside Ayton in the front court. That defense would struggle mightily, especially if Devin Booker is not a great defender either. Mikal Bridges is great, but he's not going to be able to cover up for all those guys. In terms of trades, they have a few expiring contracts I think that they could flip for a good player, or to move up in the draft as well as another option. Kelly Oubre is the main one. Oubre has been a really nice player for this team. He's a good wing, and those are hard to come by. However, I'm not sure that this team is going to want to fork over the kind of money that Oubre could potentially demand in his free agency next offseason. So I could see them trying to trade him. And a trade offer or a trade rumor that comes up a lot is Kelly Oubre in the 10th pick to move up to number 2, where the Warriors are picking. Trade Oubre in 10 for 2 and draft LaMelo Ball. And I think that that is certainly an interesting idea. LaMelo could be a fantastic option at the point guard alongside D-Book. LaMelo is, I think, going to be a pretty solid defender, and he's also a very good playmaker. And a core of LaMelo Ball, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton would have a ton of potential moving forward. Obviously, losing Oubre would be a hit, but they do have Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges as wings, as well as Dario Saric, although he is an outgoing free agent. We'll talk about him in a bit. But I'm not sure that I would do this trade because if I'm the Warriors, because Oubre is a free agent, and they are so far over the cap that they're probably not going to be able to pay a guy like that. So that's really the only trade I could see them making. Chris Paul trade is another possibility. One idea that I kind of had was they could flip Ricky Rubio and Ty Jerome, who was the guy they took in the second round last year, as well as a 2021 lottery protected first round pick for Chris Paul. And I don't know if I would do that if I'm the Suns because I'm not sure they are good enough to be trading first round picks. Although if they can get the lottery protection on that, I feel pretty strongly that this team will still be in the lottery next year. Although if they are trading for Chris Paul, that would probably push them into the playoff hunt. So really, I just am not sure that that's the best move for the Suns. They don't need to make that kind of win now move with the kind of success we saw from them in the bubble. They should just trust their young core to continue to make improvements and make that addition through the draft. If the right trade for Oubre comes along, absolutely do it. But if it doesn't, just ride it out and see what happens this season. In terms of free agents, the outgoing guys they have are Aaron Baines, Dario Saric, and Javon Carter, who I believe is restricted. Baines was a really solid backup center for them this season, and he also started a lot of minutes during DeAndre Ayton's suspension for taking a diuretic, which is one of the silliest things I've ever heard. But nevertheless, he's a guy that they should absolutely consider bringing back due to the value he brings to their roster as a big guy who can really play. We've seen it the past couple of years when he was in Boston as well as this season. Aaron Baines is a really quality center in the NBA, and I think that they should definitely consider keeping him around as a guy who can really be a leader for this team. However, we also did see them play very well without him in the bubble, so I don't think that it's a very high priority for them. And similar with Oubre, they did not have him in the bubble, and they were still very successful despite his absence. So that's part of why I think that trading him might be a good idea. In free agency, some guys they could target. I think that if they could lure Jeremy Grant or Paul Millsap away from the Nuggets, that could be a really nice addition for them at the power forward spot, especially Grant. A defensive front court of Mikal Bridges and Jeremy Grant would be absolutely terrifying for opposing wings. Those are two of the better defenders on the wing in the entire NBA, and they're also very young, so they could absolutely lock down a lot of the better wing players in the NBA. Millsap could also come in and fill a veteran presence similar to what Ricky Rubio did this season, and I don't think that they would have to give him too immense of a contract. I'm not exactly sure what his market will look like, but I don't think there's any chance that he gets the type of deal that he had last year, or when he signed his last contract with the Nuggets. So he could be a really nice addition for them. They could slot him into the starting lineup at the 4. Otherwise, there's been some rumors of them being interested in Fred VanVleet, and I have said I'm a big fan of Fred VanVleet, and I think that whoever brings him in free agency is going to be making a really nice addition. So they should definitely consider that. It would push Rubio to the bench, and Rubio would be one of the better sixth men in the entire NBA. That or they would bring Fred off the bench as the sixth man. Either one of those could be a pretty solid option. However, I'm not sure that VanVleet is probably going to be demanding a contract of $20+ million this offseason. And if they were to bring him in, I'm not sure you want a guy who you're paying that kind of money coming off the bench. So that's one option there. So in summary, this team's got a really nice young core surrounding, highlighted by Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton, who Booker was an all-star this year, I believe, and Ayton has all-star potential, as well as a bunch of starting caliber younger guys who fill out the core nicely. Guys like Mikal Bridges, who's a great defensive stopper, Kelly Oubre, who's a really nice 20-point per game scorer, and Cameron Johnson, who's one of the better young shooters in the entire NBA. This team has a bright future, as we saw in the bubble. They have potential to win now, but I do not think that they are quite on the level of a lot of the playoff teams in the Western Conference. I think that it's likely one more season that they will be drafting in the lottery before they make that playoff jump. But if they can make smart choices in free agency, find a good trade for Kelly Oubre, and make the right selection with the 10th overall pick in the draft, I don't think the playoffs are out of the question for this team. I just don't think it's completely the most likely result in the 2020-2021 season for the Phoenix Suns. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment down below on whether or not you think that the Suns should trade Kelly Oubre. That's it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all again very soon.